What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, former President Trump recently was in Washington, D.C. for the first time since leaving office back in January of 2021. All right, he spoke at the America First Policy Institute, which recently has held a summit. And along with the fact that he's pretty much guaranteed that he's going to, if reelected to a second term, he's going to pretty much run like a dictator. He's going to try to run this country like a dictator. And that's apparent. But he said something that was historically inaccurate. All right? Now, look, everybody is entitled to their opinions, but you can't just rewrite history. You can't say things that aren't factually accurate. He said that former President Nixon most likely regretted resigning from the presidency and not fighting it out. He regretted not going through the fire of the impeachment process and gutting it out. That's one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever heard in my life. Okay? First of all, the situation with Donald Trump was far different than the situation with Richard Nixon. Donald Trump has the benefit of a cult following, all right? He has the benefit of a cult following in the party, and he has the benefit of various right-wing, alt-right news services which present alternative news sources, which usually are very pro-Trump, pro-Republican, anti-Democrat. And anything that Trump does that is considered controversial, they'll spin it and say that, hey, the Democrats have done worse. The Democrats are out on a witch hunt against Trump. Don't trust the main news media. They're 90% Democratic. Don't believe them. And this is constantly fed to people who support Trump. So therefore, what I'm getting at is the country is far, far more polarized than it was back in the 1970s. There really wasn't any alternative right-wing news services. People had to get their news from television and newspapers for the most part. So, they reported the news as it was. Now, I will admit that 80 to 90% of the people who were in news media were Democratic or left-leaning. And as a consequence, I would even say that some of the news media were a little unfair to President Nixon. But those who supported President Nixon still turned against the president because they saw the facts as it were. He did things that were illegal. Even most of his most staunchest supporters, even if they liked Nixon, they could not approve what he was doing. So when you look at the fact that in the House, no matter what was reported, no matter what was discovered, no matter what was shown that he did that was illegal, or at least extraordinarily questionable, talking about Trump, the Republicans would sort of spin it, or do everything they could to try to lessen the severity of it. And no matter what was discovered, they weren't going to vote him out. Nixon didn't have that benefit. When the leadership the leading Republican leadership, met with Nixon after the smoking gun tape. That was the ball game. Because Nixon still had like enough of a support base to stave off impeachment. As long as he could get 34 votes in the Senate to avoid impeachment, that would have meant sort of like a coalition of conservative Republicans and conservative Democrats from the South. That would have been enough to probably keep him from being convicted. But when that went away, when that deteriorated after that tape came out, he didn't have enough support. If he had decided to stick it out, he would have been convicted in the Senate, removed from office, and probably jailed, all right, given a prison sentence. I don't know how much, but you got to also remember that the House and Senate were heavily Democratic at that time. And the Supreme Court was majority liberal. Totally different from today's times. So Nixon was not in a position to lean on any judge or leniency. It would have been bad for him. The best case scenario for Nixon was what he did. Resign the office, have his good friend Gerald Ford be vice president, appointed after Spiro Agnew resigned. Ford becomes president. Ford pardoned Nixon of any crimes, and therefore Nixon was able, even though disgraced, he was free. And got his pension, and was able to live the rest of his life as a free man. If he had went the angle that Trump is talking about, he would have went to prison. He'd been removed from office. Certainly, he'd been removed from office. There's no doubt in my mind he would have been removed from office. His power base in Washington was completely wiped out. This is when Nixon had approval ratings in the 20s. I mean, look, Biden is in a horrible position right now in the 30s. Nixon was down in the 20s. Probably would have been eventually teetered down into the teens. It was over. Ball game was over. So Donald Trump is once again just saying shit, man. You know what I'm saying? Lying about shit. But anyway, that's all I had to say.